I feel like I'm sitting down. I'm in trouble.
I feel like I'm in trouble too because this video is long overdue.
Definitely.
So
Here we are.
we're here. Where are we? What is this? What is this setting?
We're in our
It's
living
not a
room.
podcast anymore.
It's not a podcast.
So what is it? Yeah, it's our living room. It's our Christmas tree.
It's a YouTube video.
It's a YouTube video. So what's going on with us?
So we're finally sitting down to let you all know what's going on. Where have we been? I think that's the big question. We haven't been shy on social media. Like we're posting regularly, like on our personal pages.
But there hasn't been no podcast in several weeks. And we mentioned like recording a final episode, but we just never got to it. So this is like to make up for that with some explanation and where we are now and what to expect from us in the future.
Where are we?
Well, let's talk about why we stopped the podcast. Let's go in order.
Okay.
Let's go back. So you go.
I feel like I'm in trouble.
I just want to hear your perspective. I feel like I've been telling it. You've been telling it. We've been telling it together.
Yes.
But I feel like at this point, as much as we've discussed it, I kind of want to hear your take on it.
Let's see if I studied enough for the exam. No, in all seriousness. So this will be our second break, right? We'll come back to calling it a break later. But
yeah, I'm like a break.
On our first break, we made a decision to stop. And the decision was based off the fact that we felt like there were things in our lives that were not getting as much attention as this beautiful creation known as the podcast.
And in terms of attention, we're talking about consistency.
Yeah.
Right? Like other things in our lives that we couldn't remain consistent on, but the podcast was consistent.
Even something as simple as like health and fitness. So, one of the goals for us was like eating better, working out, and due to doing the podcast, we would order out more because it's just like not planning properly and just needing to get some substance in you. And but
our priorities weren't in order.
But we sat down to record.
Yeah.
No matter what. So that was the first break. It was just like a bunch of things that were adding up that weren't being done properly. And we made some goals for ourselves where we were going to take the break, get our lives in order.
And then add the podcast back in when we were in a place that felt a little bit more right.
But your boy Travis over here jumped the gun.
Yeah.
And basically threw out a date. I think I threw out a date to our Patreon members. Like, we'll be back, whatever it was. And truthfully, at that moment of our life, we weren't ready.
No.
We hadn't been consistent. I wouldn't say everything was off whack, but
we weren't where we wanted to be yet.
Yeah.
Things had definitely gotten a lot better in certain areas.
Yeah, and then I think your thought process was like, we just give it a shot and we'll kind of get ready on it.
Because when we took the break, we said, okay, in the fall. So fall was around the corner. We were keeping up with Patreon, and we kind of picked a date. And I said, you know what? I think we should be back in the fall because that's what we've been saying. Although we haven't met our goals, I think it's possible to do both at the same time because we're still on an upward trajectory in terms of accomplishing the things we want to do. So maybe we could start the podcast and still work on things. And how did that go?
For some reason, I don't know how, but I feel like it got worse than before, which is crazy to say. I guess you can make the argument that it was heading that way anyway, and then I had the bright idea to start the podcast, so the bubble burst even quicker than it would have.
That's fair.
And more honesty here, Stephanie made the decision, and I couldn't argue it, right? Because at the end of the day, I want to this is fun, but it's not my life.
Yeah.
My life is my wife, my kids, and she was bringing to my attention is like this isn't sustainable for us long term. And although it was like a hard pill to swallow, I agreed. Um, yeah,
Yeah, definitely. I felt that you, as my partner, you looked at the podcast as like an opportunity, like to push us into a better place overall, right? But I felt in doing that, a lot of other things were going down the drain. So I felt that even if the podcast reached the level of success we hoped and we were making a ton of money, I would have felt unhappy.
like at what cost?
At what cost? Because there were so many other areas in which I felt that you were unable to show up for our family because of the way you were showing up for the podcast. So I'm like, it's not worth it.
And I agree. It's a no brainer at the end of the day. So it's been over a month now, right? Yeah, and we've been thinking about how we want to do this. Is there going to be a podcast? Is there, at the end of the day, I don't take for granted what we've built.
Yeah.
Every single message, email, comment, the analytics speak for themselves. Like there's people who enjoy this. When we took a break, it was just constant messages of when are you coming back? I have people at my job asking me, so what's going on?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't take that for granted.
So we know that it's not something we could just shut out of our I can't talk. We can't just shut it out of our lives 100% without figuring out a way that's sustainable for us, but also fun for us and also still engages with you all, with our audience.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. And it's not like obviously once we sit down, it's fun. We flow.
Absolutely.
You've seen our banter. We're genuine friends at the end of the day. We're not, it's not it's not performative.
Absolutely.
But I'll be lying if I said like there were days where it's just like, setting up and it's just like, oh my God, are we really going to do this? Or there's a million things to get done around the house, but we're about to set up and do this podcast.
And it's beyond that, right? It's beyond the work. I feel like something that we came to the realization on that I feel like many people might be able to relate to, or it might be like a light bulb moment. It's not just the physical time and labor to do the podcast, but it's the attention, the mental load that it takes, and then the other areas in our lives that isn't getting their attention, right? So when you would come to me and say like, oh, I was reading this article about AI. Podcast analytics, or how we could use AI to do this for the podcast, or there's an update with this platform. Although it sounds like great, like I should be happy that you're looking into all of that, I felt a sense of where is that energy when it comes to cooking or fatherhood or marriage in general, right? Because it's our podcast, and although I kind of took the lead on like content, as a man in our relationship, I also wanted you to kind of be like, you know what, I was reading up on how I could improve this in our marriage. And your mental load was never available because it was just focused on, I don't know, the tech side. What would you call that? Like the admin side of things.
I don't know what it's called, but it definitely had a chokehold on me.
And it's great, and I appreciate that work ethic and that like drive, but I felt like it was too narrow focused on the podcast world. And I guess that's where people who are like celebrities already, they show up. They're the talent. We have to be everything, and it's like it's not really sustainable. If it was just us, if we didn't have children, maybe I don't know. Maybe there's a way for it to work. I'm sure people do it. But for us, it wasn't working.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, it was a no-brainer picking this or my marriage. And, jokingly but very serious. Like I feel like it could have potentially headed there if we just kind of like brushed it under the rug as like, oh, we'll figure it out. So that's that's when it got really serious for me.
And we want to make sure we still like each other.
So yeah, that's where we are with it. You know what, YouTube, you gotta look at the camera more.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so that's where we are. That's where we were. That's where we are. Where are we headed to next?
So, like I said, we don't take for granted what we've built, but we also have to set our priorities straight. So with everything in life, there comes balance.
Yeah.
So we're still brainstorming how that looks, but we don't want to completely just fall off the map.
Yeah. So what are some ideas we have?
Well, I want to say what's
without
definite.
making promises.
I want to say what's definite.
What's definite? Because I get worried because Travis gets excited and he kind of makes promises that we can't keep.
Well, I'm going to say what's definite is the podcast is done.
Oh, okay. The podcast is done.
There.
Go ahead.
I want to say like maybe very like
Yeah.
point
I agree with that.
0.00001% chance that something may spark
A conversation.
and we're like, yo, you know what?
Let's make a podcast.
Blow the
of
dust
it.
off the mics.
Yeah.
Let's record this. But that's gonna be like you'll never know it's coming.
It'll just be a drop.
It could be like a year or two or never. I just wanna. Is that
Yeah,
safe? Is that safe to say?
That's safe.
What we do want to do is increase our presence on social media. What that looks like, I think we're still brainstorming.
But I think we know kind of what the goal is.
Yeah.
So the goal is one of the things that we were not putting as much effort into because our mental load with the podcast was being more intentional parents, being more intentional partners in terms of not just living day to day like so content, like seeing ideas, seeing parenting tips and actually applying them, right? You know, how many times don't you see a reel, a post, and you send it to your friend's group chat about a restaurant y'all want to go to, but y'all never go? Or you send it to your friend mom group about this cool activity to do with your kid, and then you never do it. So I think one of our goals in general is to actually be intentional, right? Set dates. We see a recipe we want to try, put it in the calendar. When are we going to make it? So we want our content and our presence on social media to kind of reflect that and show our journey in being intentional in those areas of our life. How'd I do?
Perfect. That's not to say that, we're not still going to have fun with it. I think all those things can be fun. I think we'll also be doing the funny things.
Yeah, like marriage humor.
To an extent.
Parenting humor.
I'm battling.
In a way that feels natural to us.
Because I'm battling with that.
Yeah, Travis, and I feel like all of us, we have that fear of like being cringy when you're trying to be funny, right? I always say Travis is really funny. He's witty. But natural conversation. Now, putting a camera on and trying to like act or have skits, that's not as much up our alley, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to anything as long as it feels
natural.
Genuine.
Yeah, genuine.
Natural. But I just see some things out there that I know I'm not capable of.
Yeah. We want to stay in our lane. Sometimes you take a detour, you take another exit, you visit a new place, but we still want to stay authentic to who we are. So we'll see how it plays out.
So, with that being said, we're still figuring it out. We have this YouTube channel. We're going to post this video. If you have any ideas of how, outside of doing the podcast, how we can show up for you all, please let us know. We're open to hearing ideas. Yeah,
and open to doing maybe shorter, more condensed content on YouTube, like maybe a 10, 15, 20-minute video. How would you like to see us on this platform? In this format where we're just having conversations? Do you want to see more of our home, our life, our family? the activities we do. What are you thinking? What comes to mind when you think of like how this pivot, specifically when it comes to YouTube, what it could look like?
I think these conversations, I think, it's still somewhat in the same lane as podcasts, but I feel like the pressure's off. Um, and I feel like we were pretty candid. Like we let it out like a lot. And I still feel like we can still be that. I don't know. I don't know yet. I don't know yet.
Yeah.
If I had to say one thing, maybe some type of Q&A, like maybe a weekly Q&A. I don't know. I'm scared to say anything.
Yeah. I also feel like when I think about the future, right? And the reason podcasting was like a little harder to grow into something that had any financial gain is because we're just sitting, we're just talking. And a lot of advertising, marketing, and ways to make money on social media is like being able to incorporate products and services within the content that we produce. So I feel like we have to kind of expand just sitting and having a conversation in order to eventually be able to market and make a little bit of money on this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it has to go beyond this. But do I still want to do this? Yeah.
I think this is something we enjoy, but I'm definitely open to ideas because, as you can see, your boy don't know.
And it's because we enjoy being open, being vulnerable about our marriage, right? I think mainly because of the feedback we get from people. Also knowing like we wish we had something like this before marriage. We have young people in college who listen to us who still are way ahead of us and like are planting little seeds about how to have a lasting relationship. And then we have people who've been married way longer than us that are like, wow, you guys are like wise beyond your years. And like, I agree. I get that. I see that. Or we have that same realization. So that's one of the main reasons we want to keep doing it. And we want to maintain the relationship that we sort of built with our audience.
Yeah. It's crazy because, we'll still get emails to this day of people who have asked for advice over a year ago and tell us how much we've like helped them change their lives.
Oh, maybe we could have like little, so y'all can relate, but it's not that's all it is. We come on to talk about a story and give our advice. That'll be a cute way to do the sit down ones.
Yeah. But yeah, with that, you also feel like an obligation to those people because that's a big deal. And I think also doing the podcast, it's also pushed me to just open up more. Like even the conversations I have with friends and some coworkers / friends that I probably never would have prior to doing this.
I even feel like with me, because I'm more of the talker. And, a lot of times maybe earlier on in our conversation, like we came to understandings that I kind of had to use your body language or you didn't use your words as much as you use them now. Like I feel like with this podcast, I've pushed you to be more expressive. And even you've pushed yourself because if you're just listening to the podcast, they can't count on body language expressions. You have to be vocal about what you're thinking, what you're feeling. So I think it's just helped us with communication in general.
Yeah, I definitely found my voice. And it's deep.
Yeah, and I feel like it's pushed you to look deeper within yourself and like your personality and who you are, who you want to be, who you were.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I feel like with this, in this direction we're trying to go, that won't change, but we're going to gain. I think we're going to gain a lot in terms of life experience because we're not trying to plan 1 hour of having to sit down. We're like producing content about how we're enriching our lives, like literally doing the work to still like each other and be the best parents that we could be.
Yeah, for sure. So, with all that being said, the podcast is not going anywhere in terms of what we've done. You can go back and listen
And
or
listen,
watch.
yeah.
So that'll still be available, but it has come to an end. And our friend Irene said something when we told her it was done, and she says,
Y'all did a thing.
"Y'all did a thing," and we definitely did a thing.
Yeah,
It was
very proud of it.
Yeah, extremely proud of it, and I don't think I'm as proud of it if it wasn't for you all, for all your feedback. So thank you. I hope that this next chapter, because it's a chapter, you can be as supportive.
You want to talk a little quick update, like what we've been up to, like outside of podcast world, like just what life has been like?
Yeah, a lot of preparation. We are expecting our third child, Miss Santi.
I can make my belly.
Ooh.
She big.
So she will be here in about 5 to 7 weeks.
Yeah. So I'm 33 weeks pregnant. Technically, you could be pregnant 40 weeks or more. I've never hit 39 weeks. So we're thinking, okay, we have 5 weeks left. Like we're keeping that in our head to have everything ready at least within 5 weeks. Yeah. We're doing pretty good.
I think so. It's just a lot of preparation, a lot of small details. Your boy's been Bob the Builder over here.
Yeah.
I hope I'm living up to your expectations.
Yeah. One of the things we've spoken about on the podcast is what personality traits we have that are just embedded in us. Like we've heard it so much that we believe it, and what's that? It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So I think Travis has always told himself, like, I'm not handy. Like that's just not the type of person I am. And then it's like you grow up, you have a family, and like you can't just have that excuse forever. Like you have to try, you have to push yourself, right? Just like I haven't always been a great cook. I still don't think I'm a great cook. I think I cook well, and over the years I realize it gets better. But if I just told myself like I just don't cook, like I could never cook like my mom or my Dominican aunties, like I could never make that, then there's no growth, no room for progress. So you've been kind of trying to step outside of that idea that you're not handy.
Yeah, it's not easy. I've been to Home Depot more than I ever been in my life. But I'm doing the damn thing.
And that shows that when he was so focused on the podcast, he had no mental capacity to like
do anything else.
Undo that learning of I'm not handy. So he's had a lot more time to like do other things, and it's been nice to see. And our kids see it, and our 9-year-old has pointed out like, why does daddy drive whenever daddy's around? Like, why don't you drive? So it's like we're kind of, I don't want him to have that idea that like the man drives and the woman doesn't, right? Mm-hmm. And he also knows that I cook more, or that, he's noticing those things, and I don't want him to think that men do this, women do that. So we've kind of been working on sharing the labor of certain things within reason, obviously, because like I'm home more, I cook more. That is logical, but
he was praising my eggs this morning, making me feel good. He's like, this is the best eggs I've ever had.
He's so sweet.
I was like, I made it with love.
He's really good with words of affirmation, and yes, homeschool.
Oh yeah, we are homeschooling our 9-year-old. Mm-hmm. That's for you to speak to. How do you feel it's been going?
It's been going well. I was a little hard on myself because like in October, all of us were sick, like back to back. It was like a mess. But that's the point of homeschool. It's flexible. Like we're getting to it, and although we fell behind in a little bit of the things that are more teacher directed, he was very independent and got a lot of his own things done on platforms that he knows how to use independently and asks for help when he needs it. I'm reading this book about homeschooling. The name is like escaping me right now. But the author talks about when we talk about how a kid is so smart, we always mean academic, right? Like they get good grades, they're reading above grade level, but there are so many other different ways that our kids show brilliance that we don't ever appreciate or call it out on. And I notice how emotionally intelligent Eli is and how thoughtful he is and how kind he is. And that's something to be celebrated, right? You know, even like one of my friends, she's a teacher as well. And when we met, she was like, have you noticed like growth? And because she's a teacher, I'm a teacher too. We're thinking like academic, like has his math scores improved? Has his reading level improved? But I'm trying to undo that thinking and like, what other areas is he improving on? That doesn't mean, listen, that teacher side is still there and I still make sure that he is improving academically, but I'm trying to shift the importance of it and make sure that he's a well-rounded individual overall. And, I'm proud of how he is socially, emotionally.
Same. What else?
Not much. House stuff.
Yeah, house stuff, a lot of house changes.
Yeah.
But I think we have some time to update you all on this new chapter.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to say in closing?
I do want to let people know that we do have a baby registry. So before with River, we were like posting it more. But since we took a break from the podcast, we didn't want to just like post like we have a baby registry, but we're like not producing any content. So I figured for anyone who would like to gift us or gift Santi a welcoming gift, we are registered on Amazon and Target.
I'll put the links in the description.
Yeah, but you could also look up our names, Travis and Stephanie Whiteman. But yeah, we'll put the links in the description of this video. And you know, we appreciate anything that you give us. Yeah, I think that's it. We did it. Oh my God, we've been so nervous because like, what do we say? People are gonna think we're frauds.
I honestly felt like we were in trouble.
Yeah, I'm also reading this book called Daring Greatly. I might have talked about it in the last episode or something, but it's about vulnerability and how if you are vulnerable, like it allows your life to like flourish, like don't hold back. It talks about fear and how it impacts your life, shame. And I think we had so much fear about stopping the podcast because we were worried about what people would think about us. Like, does that mean their marriage sucks? Do they really not like each other? They're frauds. They took a break. They came back. Now they left again. Like, we had a lot of negative self-talk. In the book I'm reading, she calls them gremlins. Like, negative thoughts and ideas that kind of hold you back from doing what you want to do.
Definitely had a bunch of those.
Yeah, still do. Like, which I think is what took us so long to sit here and do this, because we're like, I think it was also the fear of we didn't really know where we wanted to take it. So we didn't want to be like, oh, we're going to
do something.
Yeah, we don't want to drop a video on YouTube once a week. And then we're like, no, we can't do that.
Yeah, I feel lighter. I feel free.
Same.
Like today, we spent the whole day just doing random projects around the house, and there was no pressure of, oh, but don't forget to sit down and do the podcast. You know, so I'm looking forward to that. You know, being a creative, but also it not having a chokehold on us.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is it. This is the beginning.
This is the beginning, right? We should call it the beginning.
It's not final. It's a
a fresh start. It's a intro. But the story, there's so much left to be developed.
Bars. We'll see y'all soon.
Peace.
Peace.